Action. Yeah, how do you roll the script? Hi, everybody. No viewers yet, but I'm sure there'll be many of you logging on shortly. May 6th, 2015. School District official. All right, we're going to get serious now. Dan Kuczynski. Item number 1.
Item 1.
I know what it has to do with because Emily Reddy's here. We're going to talk about model classroom, something about that. Can you tell me what it
Can we
says?
get clarity around what the model classroom might look like, sound like, feel like? Some possible indicators. What work does it take to establish this? Is it only for indicators used with eSale with literacy environment, or could it be used for other areas?
Okay. I think this conversation is going to come up like a lot in the next several years, not just because of the literacy lab sites, but also because of the strategic compensation model and the conversations about model classrooms. So I think Sharon was asking too, in particular, because as she's trying to develop her L1 through 5, she's trying to picture about what those classrooms might look like and things like that. So I don't know that any of us have the right answer, or there is the right answer, obviously, but just to engage in some discussion in that, even from your lens, Emily, I'll let you start, and then we'll just kind of.
Okay. So in the CLM model, the model classrooms are, there's about 2 or 3 in each lab site, and they're most closely coached by the building coach. It kind of has shifted our coaching model from everybody surface level, quick little touch-ins and finding your resources and things like that to I'm going to really dig in deep and grow this practice. The goal is that they're initially a model classroom for a year, and that's where that intensive coaching happens, and then you move on to another model classroom the next year. So in those lab sites, it's not like those 3 are the only people getting coached, but with everyone else, it's more of maybe a mini cycle or a model or a demonstration or like PLC planning. But in really intensive planning, they plan together, they coach, they model lessons, all of that happens just in those few classrooms. And the goal is that they are up and running as a full of the whole model is implemented. This year being our first year, we had like language workshop, took a lot of time to wrap everyone's brains around. And so that's pretty much the piece that is up and running currently in those rooms. But next year, moving forward, the goal is all pieces of the model in those rooms, because then those people end up being leaders within their PLC and in the team. There are some schools that do it where you're a model in just a part of, like this room might be the model for language workshop. This might be the model for thoughtful logs, this room. So there's some different ways of doing it, but.
So, because I've been on a couple of the e-sales at the middle school level, and so the coaches always talk in terms of, well, this is one of our model classrooms. Like I hear them talk that language. Would a teacher down the hall know that that's a model classroom as well?
Yes.
And you've been really explicit with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's when we first went to Fort Atkinson, when we were exploring the CLM model, and they talked about their model classrooms, and they had teachers talking about how it's an honor to be a model classroom. They have more people like asking to be model classrooms. They end up doing like a lottery basically for their model classrooms each year. And that people are like begging to be coached. And last year when we heard that, we were like, yeah, right. That didn't seem really realistic. But the interesting thing is just in this 1 year of having model classrooms, in those sites, people are asking to be coached like never before.
Wow.
And so I think it's been giving people a chance. Sometimes coaching felt like a quick drive-by of like, I'm going to come and do this to you and expect you to implement it, and then I'm out and on to something else. Whereas this is like really that true model of I'm learning right next to you. I know your kids. We're digging into this together. We're co-planning, all that responsiveness. And people are then asking to be coached. Those model classroom teachers are speaking up in PLC. So it really is.
Wow.
And the other shift is that to start with your initial round of model classrooms, Dorn's recommendation is that you work within the good to great model. So you're starting with people who are primed and ready, and it's more about refinement of practice to get up. It's not like a rescue
Yeah.
mission.
Yeah, interesting.
One of my favorite books.
Yes.
It is my favorite book of all time.
It's a good one.
Wow.
Can I ask a really quick question about that? So this came up yesterday in our book study that when you work with a good to great model and you're focusing on people that already have very high capacity, who respond well with feedback, who are really intentional in their planful and everything else, at the same time, you might also be in a building where you have many, many brand new staff and there could be fires blazing like up across the street. How do you mediate your time in a good to great model when you have both of those scenarios going on?
And I think that's something that we have definitely wrestled with, especially with the mentoring program kind of going away and coaches becoming mentors as well as coaches. And so it really has been a fine balance of how do you balance all that. I would say most often new teachers probably aren't getting the same level of support from the coach as they might have in the past. In terms of like if there was a fire blazing, it's not like you ignore it, but really thinking about it's forced all of us to be more focused in what's my purpose in going in here. Am I going in here just to observe the fire over and over and
Right.
be like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Right.
this is not going well?
Fire.
Or am I really, is there really a purpose? What is the purpose? How can I really make my time purposeful? And how can I set up things that are really gonna make sense? If that fire is because they're really struggling with, I don't know, guided reading and their teaching partner is really strong at that, how can I help leverage that? It's really about growing teacher capacity because we talk a lot about too often in a coaching situation, especially one that's that close, is you develop learned helplessness in the other person of like, I can't make this decision without you. And so the whole model is really about I'm in there really intensely and then I purposefully am gone for a while for you to try it out. And then I come back and give you feedback. And I'm always directing you back to the text. I'm not just telling you what I know, but we're looking at that text together. We're looking at the research together so that when I walk away, your first thought with a question is to go back to research and find that answer, not to think I'm the holder of all that information. But then in that time when you're purposely going away, that's when you can do those mini sessions with other people and set up those pieces.
So I'm staring straight at Rachel right now because this makes me think of, we talked around setting up model classrooms for next school year for the high schools, okay, for the lab site schools. So the level at which we currently have the framework set up is not sustainable in having two consultants do the modeling and the pushing in, which is what will happen unless we have that coach right next to them. And that was just my epiphany when she was talking. Maybe somebody's already thought of that, but we haven't talked about that. And so like, if Amanda's not at every one of those modeling push-ins, we have failed. If Laura Ryan is not, and whoever North hires.
And I think the implication of if you're a lab site teacher, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a model classroom teacher.
Correct.
That distinction is not
Correct.
made, and we
Correct.
talked about that. We need to probably
Yep.
determine who of our lab site teachers are going to be model classroom teachers,
Right.
and thinking of it from that framework, which is great.
Right. So are we thinking that May is a time where we need to solidify that moving into the school year?
I think establishing who you want it to be and what their roles are. And
Yeah.
we, Amy and Eric and I talked about, we need to solidify, because that's on May 13th
Right.
agenda at the end of the day, that we would put out what are our expectations of
Okay.
if you're a model classroom teacher, and how is that different than if you're a lab site teacher,
Okay.
and really being clear about what we expect
Good.
that work to be.
And we have talked about that too, because going into this year, we didn't really know it's all been moving parts constantly. But that has been, especially because sometimes there does have a tendency in Waukesha, I'm sure it's probably everywhere, to be like, I'm going to opt into that, but I'm going to just choose not to opt into that. So one of the things, like in planning a language workshop, there's a very specific planner that at first you're like, well, maybe it doesn't matter. And Linda and Carla are like, no, if you don't use that, you're not doing it to fidelity.
Yes.
And so some of the model classroom teachers have been like, oh, well, I don't really use the curriculum map, or I don't. And it's like, no, like you need to know what that's the expectation.
Good.
And so, but that has been an aha for us too, of really those expectations are important and that it is an honor and it is a privilege. However, there are expectations along with it.
So, and that's key because really in our four areas, I'm thinking literacy, math. I mean, I was going to pin Dan in a second and say, have you and Rose had any conversations about what like that model classroom looks like? Waukesha for learning, Waukesha 1. How are we defining those model classrooms? So that's just going to be a conversation again that we have to have, not just for the process of fidelity and sustainability, but for the process of strategic comp and making those expectations clear for professional growth for people.
Well, and I guess as I'm hearing you say that, so we've had emails back and forth and little kind of just about like what are the literacy tools that are going to support this. So at what point does the pushing come for us to start really observing those practices and say, here's going to be the tool set that we might support that, you know, without being overwhelming. And you're saying we're just getting part one of this up and running now.
Right.
So where, you know,
Right.
wherein is that an appropriate time to do that?
Definitely.
So,
Yeah, because that's like, as you were saying, where all these model classrooms, I was like, ideally you'd have them overlapping, but then you'd also don't want to overwhelm that person. At the same time, we don't want to send the message of like, you can only be a model of each one. So that's interesting. I want, what's the order of that layering? Like after they're a model classroom of one,
How does that look?
yeah.
So, Jim Paulson,
Mhm.
is he one of them?
He is a color,
Okay.
yes.
So now I'm at the point of coaching him there and kind of pushing into that. And now
Right.
it seems to be the right time to start doing that.
Yeah.
I'm in there probably doing 4 or 5 times now, observing. Now we're getting into what are we going to do about it. So,
Yeah.
so maybe, I mean, where are they in the process of being a model?
They've been being coached probably since about like December-ish.
Okay.
So, and because I think that's the part of really understanding the practice, so that like Thoughtful Logs is a really good example. Some places are doing digital, some are doing paper. I think there's benefits, like pros and cons to both. But one thing that we're seeing as people go to digital, when they're switching over halfway through, all of a sudden they're focusing just on like how you put it in Notability and not on like the depth of comprehension. And so when you just look at it, it's not as powerful as it was when it was on paper. But I totally believe it does have that power. So then what are those ways to have them get coaching, not only on the purpose of the Thoughtful Log, but now how can we leverage technology to get to that spot?
And the goal being at some point they're going to catapult past what they were able to do before.
Totally. So I think that's a perfect example, and it'll be neat to watch Jake and Patrick's room and see how, because that is already an example then of layered coaching.
Right.
Jody, is and I'm familiar with the strategic in that order. So that is Waukesha 1, like you could be a model teacher of Waukesha 1. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, I
Like
mean, I
teachers
think that
will have that?
the theory of the badges would be like there's almost 3 sets of badges. A learning piece, so like a summer literacy with just attending would be like learn. That application piece, where you start like applying and then becoming like a model classroom is the application with the student data and results.
Yes.
So yeah, I think all 4 of those sort of core areas are looking to build that growth continuum
Okay.
for opportunities for teachers. And it's going to look nasty like in year 1, and and then it's going to evolve because the foundational levels that we build now aren't going to be what they're going to be in years. Hi, it is. Well, hang on a second.
It's going to evolve over to. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, because really.
Well, and there's like forward steps and then there's backward steps you can take. So you might live, it's like Danielson's model where you might live in the 3s and sometimes touch a 4, but then you mostly go back to a 3. And so that's tied to people's compensation as well.
And fundamentally, can you be a Waukesha 1 or a Waukesha for learning teach like model without doing the other
That's
stuff.
it.
I don't believe you can. I really, like, you could be a whiz bang tech person, but who cares?
It's not quality.
Yeah,
It's
like-
not-
You know what I mean? So should that exist? I'm like, should there be model Waukesha classrooms?
That's like an in-app purchase. You have to have
That's
the,
funny.
you have to have the badge and then that's but yeah, that's a good question.
It just makes me think of our L1. Like we said, you and Jason are like sandwiched around like where the meat, you're the bread, right? Like you are sorry.
Might be the start.
Right, yeah.
That is on camera.
That's fuzzy. It's fuzzy.
Dan, what have you, I'm putting you on the spot, but have you had, separate from strategic compensation, have you had any conversations in your math literacy planning about model classrooms at all?
I think we're still in the what does it look like stage. So
Okay,
we're not
sure.
even talking about.
Yeah, and that's.
We're in
fine.
like, let's begin this. Let's get teachers to understand what we want it to be,
Yeah,
and not what is just to build the. Let's do it first.
Yeah.
And then we have to let's learn about it. Let's apply it, and now let's finally refine it.
right.
We're not even close to
Yep.
the refining.
Rose and I have talked about it in elementary,
Mhm.
mainly because coaching capacity wise,
Mm-hmm.
what right now we're seeing coaching not being as effective as it could be because lots of hats, lots of directions. Really, the job description currently is you could do anything you wanted and it would fall somewhere in there pretty much. But if we really need people to be coaching, we want to help them focus on how to do that and coaching in ways that make a difference. And so just for the elementary coaches in general, we've talked about shifting everybody to a model classroom type, just to get that focus to the coaching.
I think the other layer we're missing what secondary that elementary has is their coaches are just as invested in the ones that are coaching the model classrooms are deeply embedded in the learning of what this all looks like. They are part of it. They are there 3 times a month. You guys come together.
Right.
The coaches are getting that intensive training.
The
almost.
ones that are getting trained, yeah.
Right.
So not all of them.
Not
but-
all of them. And that's maybe a layer we need to look at. Are we supporting our coaches and just thinking if new coaches come on board to be able to coach our model classroom
Right.
teachers?
Right.
I mean, I've heard them say probably 10 times their training with Dorn has changed the way that they coach. Like it's changed it. And so I'd like to think that we can't just do business as we've always done business if we're going to expect to see the same kinds of growth.
I've already thought of that from a systems lens in terms of, we kind of had the conversation about like some of these coaching coordinator positions as being like catapult administrator positions or whatever. And it's hard for me to think of that because I always want to support people's professional growth, but to sustain a model of something like this, we need coaches that are invested in like, they're okay to be a coach and it's not like the next best thing. And that does worry me on a lot of levels because we need somebody to dig in and be invested for several years in order to help the process, or we're going to continue to retrain the flapping door, you know?
Some of that is just the sacredness of that position, like really keeping coaching at the forefront. I mean, I'm thinking about it, these coaches at elementary, like so much work going on, right? That, do we treat the coaching as a sacred?
Yeah, and
Ritual
I know
or
at
not?
elementary we haven't. That's all I've
Right.
heard since I've been here is we got to get them to coach instead of filling out this or doing, you know, some recess discipline issue or something else. So
I think though putting the coach in the position to be able to coach depends upon the leader of the building. So if you really respect
Yes.
the fact that the coach has a specific role and duty, then you tell that person stay in your lane. Like do not accept discipline referrals in your
Right.
office. Do not be cataloging resources in your office. Like
Correct.
stay in your lane. And then the administrator does everything that they can to support that person to do that.
Yeah.
Which means they don't do boss duty, they don't do recess duty. And then it takes a really highly disciplined coach to look at their staff member and say, I can't help you with Carmen today.
I know,
I'm busy, or it's not my role.
for sure.
But once you do it, I think life will never be the same.
I agree. I totally agree.
One thing that I'm on, I'm kind of questioning about that approach is I think about the secondary lens is that is it sustainable? I look at the number of coaches that we have in high school in particular, and as we start to branch our focus away from just literacy and bring it into numeracy and even some other areas. Well, I don't know if one person can do that.
No, and so, right, agreed. And part of that, at least from the secondary lens conversation, again, I'm going back to strategic comp because it's right here, but part of that model classroom is coaching others.
So they
So,
have the capacity.
yes, yes, that teacher leadership capacity is what will sustain an organization long after all of us are gone. So that's where it happens.
And I had that, just the thought too of like, when we started this, and I thought to myself, okay, we have 14 elementaries and 4 middle schools, and I have a total of 6 coaches being trained, and then they're each gonna do like 2 to 3 model classrooms. Like, really? There is no way that we can just start with like 12, maybe 18 teachers. But then when I think about in the coaching that we've done in the past, could we even say that I totally drastically changed the practice of 18 teachers
Correct.
total?
Right,
And the answer was no.
right.
So, but I totally hear you because I think I get hives like every day thinking like this is just not like it's not fast
Moving
enough,
fast
it's not quick enough, it's not changing enough. But then when I go back to thinking about all the years that we've talked about coaching
You can't still
and we
pick out those
haven't
models,
been we
It's
haven't been able. So at least we can say, look at in these spots it went from here to here.
Yeah.
And then like I said, those offshoot pieces that I totally didn't believe was actually going to happen, but really is already starting to. So those pieces are, it is slower than I would prefer, but it's better than not at all.
Yeah.
So
Emily, did you have criteria just in thinking about who would wanted to go to what criteria did you use when you, I know you start with your people who are already kind of there,
yeah.
but did you have indicators like that you had coaches measure against to determine who your model classroom teachers were, or was it more?
In that first year, no, it was pretty much coach and principal decision and talking about it.
Okay.
We did try to, if possible, be aware of like maybe a primary and an intermediate, so it wasn't like we had just all kindergarten teachers,
Right.
but so that, because the other piece of a model classroom really is people coming in to see it from within the school, within the district. And so we did try to really have representation so that if someone was saying, I want to see this level classroom, that we were able to do that. But it really came down to principal and coach decision. And then most of the schools did say, model classrooms, this is what it's going to be like, who's interested. And then from that, there were some places where maybe someone was nervous about it, the piece of, because one of the things we say is you're going to have to be open to people coming into your classroom to observe.
Right.
And so a few people were approached and kind of talked through it a little bit more. But for the most part, it was, do you want to? And then looking, and in all spots, there was more willingness than we have the capacity to take on, which was nice. Interested in it, so
Good discussion. Thank you for hopping in. Item number 2.
Next topic, Summer Literacy Institute update.
Yeah, I guess I wanted everybody to have around the table an update since the last conference call with Deb and Lynette. Who wants it?
You just said your dollars. Amy, you want it?
Amy and Rachel are left.
Yeah, you fill in. Does everybody have I don't know who all has access to the doc, or if you want that shared, or you
Yeah,
just
sure.
want-
The
Summer
Summer
Revised,
revised, yeah.
Does everybody have access to it? It's Summer Institute provides. Amy, maybe while I'm sharing it, I wanna, can you give us our?
So we met with, we had a conference call with Devin Lynette, and the bottom line is that, looking at this document when it comes up, we're working with, an essential question for each day based on the inquiry model framework. And Lynette is going to be giving a 30-ish minute keynote on our essential question for the day around the inquiry process. And then teachers are going to go back to a home-based smaller group to debrief on that. That's probably going to be by building. And then looking at the ICANNs and what we want teachers to get out of the day, and then sharing with them different pieces of inquiry-based, specifically focusing heavily on comprehension strategies and collaboration strategies. And then getting material by building level, but then working with course likes on the application piece, that by the end of the 3 days, teachers will come out of this with a lesson plan based on the inquiry process. That's very much an overview. And, oh, I'm sorry, Deb and Lynette are going to be working with the lab site teachers.
On the doc, if you look at the bottom, the last column where it says evidence of learning, that's the stage right now where we're kind of at, where we've asked principals and coaches to take some time, a few days, to put into place what they would like to see as evidence of learning based on those ICANN statements. So we felt really good about the ICANNs for the day. And then once those evidence of learning pieces are solidified, we can start to then shape what are going to be the activities that will lead us there. So very much we use the UPI model, we hope. And so that's where we kind of stand.
And I'll just add so as you support your teachers, I told principals yesterday that I'd like to have the end in mind, the evidence of learning and the ICANNs done by, again, May 22nd, so that they can preview this to their staff at that time. And I'd also like to put it out in the Connects even at that time too. So every secondary teacher knows the 3 essential questions, the 3 days of ICANNs, and the evidence of learning in the whole month of May and June. And then we'll work on the middle piece in terms of logistics, building the learning activities, etc. But they should all know going in, and they'll be all be able to wrap around those conversations before they even leave, knowing what they're excited to get into.
Who's leading the collaboration strategies?
We haven't even gotten to
No.
like who's facilitating and
Right.
we kind of took a note from how elementary had some success with really having a very clear understanding of what it is we want people to walk away with, and then determining who can lead that learning. Like picking your best teacher to put in front of the people. I think we started out with like smorgasbord, but we
Right.
didn't really know what we wanted people to understand by the time they left. So, that's what
We had a lot of conversation about what home base would be too. It was about, should it be course select, should it be schools? And I think that if we determine the morning would be probably school based, just to kind of get that buy-in as a group, as a team, and say this is what we're working for. But everyone, all the principals having a common understanding of this is what inquiry looks like, no matter where you are, so that when you go to your contract to build, we're kind of on the same place.
I'm going to relate to your question, Dee. Focus on, the principals and the coaches will have a lens about who their sort of model facilitator should be. But this group is really a good cross section to have multiple perspectives across the schools to say, no, I think, this person would be more well suited. So I imagine, we're probably going to do some brainstorming here and work sessions around the middle of this in the next several weeks with this team. so we can help put the middle together. So,
Rachel's point about making sure that the facilitators are from a very diverse teaching background is something we really want to focus on.
Not just having English teachers. The other piece that we did talk about that we feedback to staff, thank you, is one of the missteps that I think at ILT we addressed and people admitted to, which was really great, was we forgot to train the principals and what we were expecting them to be leading.
right,
And I don't want to have that misstep around this work because CLM, what book that all of the leaders are reading around CLM, there are pieces, and Emily and I talked about this, that are missing, that are part of disciplinary literacy, Harvey's work. And so just making sure we don't have that same misstep, that we're not putting leaders in front of teachers, asking them to do something that they themselves don't understand.
correct.
And even as a team, we talked about that. We talked a lot about gradual release, that word. Does everybody here who's asked to lead it have a working understanding of what that terminology means, and can you lead it to the teachers? And making sure it doesn't just become a word, that it's people can make it afterwards.
It's a good point. We've had a lot of just leadership development conversations in general. You know, at the director level, it's always a work in progress. And for our August, what we were calling PSI, but it's just like August PD now. For our August PD, we talked about what our principals doing during that time, and what our teachers doing during that time, and who's leading those sectionals, et cetera. And we almost put like that those employee groups on the same strand. If you're a teacher, you might be participating, you might be leading a session, and the same thing for a principal. You might be attending the session with your teachers as a learner, or you might be leading the session. So it's not just principals aren't teaching anything, and are they going or are they not? No, it's all it's that same expectation. So we're going to be very clear on that going into this summer that maybe we haven't been in the past. Good. Any questions? So, I mean, I would say it's safe to, if anybody's asking about this, I don't know if they are or not, but you have the information you need to be able to articulate it. That the central questions and ICANNs, like they said, are pretty well solidified. We're working this next week on solidifying the evidence of learning pieces, and then we'll make those visible to everybody. And then knowing that, this group will be working on the under the hood stuff for the morning and the afternoon learning section. So, good.
But I talked a little bit about the Math
Yes.
Institute, just in case
Please.
anyone asks.
It will.
They will. It's for both Rose and myself. It's centered around the L1 that you're familiar with. That by the end of this, we want teachers to have the knowledge of what is a rigorous math ask, be able to implement lesson plans that hold those descriptors out, share them, collaborate, and then hopefully implement them if they're taking up the credit. We currently have two guest speakers that are coming in. They're going to be speaking through a document called Principles to Action, which has been written by NCTM, the National Councils for Teachers of Mathematics, and focusing on communication in the math classroom, what is a mathematics task, and then of course they'll talk a little bit about the foundation through that book of where our vision came from. With that, in addition to those, we're going to have group breakout times where course-like groups will be going through some, dare I say, team building that involves them interacting with different group or collaborative processes around that information to try to build their capacity around that, and also do more together. So there'll be breakouts that support it, and there's a couple of breakouts that involve around what is a rigorous math task, and that gets into standards, grading for learning. And we have our last day, we're going to bring grade books back onto the table for training teachers, because many of our groups of teachers on the 22nd won't have the opportunity to accurately put their grade book up and fix it and get it set because their standards aren't done. Can bring that back on the table, and we'll also introduce 10 marks in training math. We have 10 marks instructors coming in from 10 marks to do that. So trying to incorporate a little bit of everything.
Jam packed.
Can I ask at what point this year, next year, whatever, would you bring in non-math teachers to something like that? Because I know there were some schools that required tech ed teachers to use numeracy, a math SLO as opposed to a literacy. And I'm wondering what their opportunity might be to get what you're sharing.
That's interesting. I think we'll have a lot of non-math teachers there, not necessarily from other subject areas. We'll have a lot of ELL support teachers, a lot of special education teachers, a lot of coaches would be there. But that's a great question. I don't know if I have an answer for that.
I'm just think about it because I'm thinking again, if tech ed teachers, I think the majority of them had a numeracy SLO goal, and then they're sitting through the literacy, then how do we make that? And I don't have issue with them sitting through literacy because we have communication rubrics for all of our classes, but it's something for the future that you might think about.
And I know with Rose and I just starting to talk about numeracy L1 through L5 for the whole district today, that I think there might be more numeracy goals or SLOs that might come out of that eventually.
Right, so I would wonder in the next year or two, probably next summer,
Okay.
I would imagine we might even be at the point where we might be asking our elected teachers. Now, the two groups you mentioned, you're like special ed and ELL, have to choose. But I wonder if we would be at the point where we would say to our elective teachers then, I mean, I'm thinking first of all, let me preface, there's no one that exists in this district that teaches 6 sections of accounting. However, if there was a business teacher that taught 6 sections of accounting, for example, shouldn't they be going to the Math Literacy Institute?
Right.
So, so we just need to
And,
remind everybody of that for the following year.
and our goals are written as such so that it really is math literacy.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, numeracy might be the wrong name for it, to be honest. So
I like that.
It's-
I like that.
it's
Yeah.
numeracy lends to the idea of us working with numbers, and we're definitely
Okay.
that's not either one of our focus.
Well, and given the specialized role of those people, at least at elementary, we have, in elementary, dual language teachers were not allowed to specialize in literacy and math. They were allowed to specialize science and math because everyone is a teacher of literacy, and I had to really hold on to that like this to get it. But they're in the same quandary. Now I teach math and I teach literacy, or I teach science and I teach literacy. Where do I go in the summer? And the option is go where you want to in the summer, and the one that you don't go to in the summer is what you need to do during the school year. And so yes, it is double duty, but I'm sorry, your job isn't like everybody else's job.
Yeah.
So maybe we build something for them to build
That's
a
a good
cohort
point,
to
too.
move
Right.
together so they have one another and they have that momentum.
Was it intentionally planned for them to be at the same time in the summer?
Yeah, I don't know, because as you were talking, right, I was thinking like, if somebody took a July literacy, they could take a August math literacy. They're gonna run that, again, so, yeah.
I just know I would love to do it. I personally want,
Yeah,
but
Well, then you can do TDP in the fall. There's lots of options.
right.
I guess I'm understanding.
Rachel Herman loves math.
Oh,
Just in case anyone's listening.
what was that?
That I think that the TDP in the fall, from my understanding, can clarify that it's gonna be pretty like CLM literacy stuff or math or grading
Right.
for learn or Waukesha for learning
Right.
or Waukesha one, but there's not gonna be like poo for your poopy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes,
So people are gonna be in a place to have
Yeah.
the systems for 6 hours.
agreed.
We'll just need like the middle level of leadership or upper level leadership to help them get there.
Agreed. Cool, good. DP
Next,
number 3.
we have youth options, questions from counselors.
Oh, goodness. I know nothing about this, but can you read the agenda item?
I can. So at the last
Oh, I
district
meant-
counselor
Meant
meeting,
everybody, but go ahead.
we had to discuss, okay, I'll read about wow.
Okay, you're on a roll and
I
you got a
know,
tie
it
on,
is.
so keep going.
We had a discussion about youth options courses and weighted credit. In the past years, coordinators would indicate if the course would be counted as weighted credit. We were saying, what if a student, say, took CalPC, counted as weighted, took the AP exam and earned a weighted credit as a junior and exhausted our district math options, and then moved to YOP for senior year math options? How would we know if the YOP class would be weighted math credit? We assumed as a high level YOP math class it would be, but assuming weight or not is no longer in the DPI flow.
So I like my attention deficit. Like I read this 3 times. I'm stupid, you guys. I don't know how I even am here sitting at this table with you guys. I don't get what.
All right,
They're
are they
even
asking
asking.
this because they talk about math? So a kid runs out of math courses. They take everything through CalPC. They take all
Right.
the EP classes. The next place for them to go would be youth options.
Yes.
Are they asking if they would get a weighted grade for that
Yes.
because it is advanced?
I would think they should, because otherwise what's the benefit of them taking it in terms of class rank? I mean, if they don't take a class and they're taking a college level, but they're dangling class rank.
Okay.
Just because they're advanced that
It's-
level.
And I agree with you 100%, but then where's the cutoff? Because isn't every college class that a kid takes advanced level, and then shouldn't they all be weighted credit?
Oh.
Right.
This happened this year.
And not,
Some-
There was
Where?
at West, there was a question at West.
Yes, there was a
and
question.
not every, we're trying to rank kids, right? That's the issue. Point away, this kid is this, and it makes a big difference for some kids.
So, all right, play that out. Play that out, because if youth options, let's play the card that we don't give advanced credit to youth options. At some point, boys and girls, I feel like, again, just choose. So guess what, Miss Class Rank 1 and 2? No, you don't get weighted credit for youth options. If you want to take it, great. If not, then don't take it. Take another weighted course or not. I mean, sometimes we're like so overly accommodating for everyone
Just pick it up.
that like, yeah, just, I mean, what would be any pushback to that?
I have some innocent question. What happens
Okay.
if a kid is already like exhausting their math opportunities, and by junior year there is no step for them, so they either take youth options and take math at the university level, or they don't take math. Don't they need 4 years of math? So for that kid's not really a choice, or is it?
That's one of the reasons why
Okay.
we're going to the board in May. Wisconsin's passed Act 138, which allows kids at the middle school level. This would be a kid who got credit at the middle school level, so he'd be okay. Or
Oh,
she would
okay.
be okay credit wise for that. Now, maybe not weighted credit wise, but
But I
It's
mean,
not
how-
4 years, it's 3 or
3
4.
credits.
Three
Oh, three
credits
credits,
of math.
Okay.
How much are we hurting kids if we don't offer weighted, right? I mean, that's what's in question.
Are you
here.
hurting them at all if you do it unilaterally though? Like if everybody has the same
Right,
opportunity,
we hurt
Does it
everyone
hurt?
unilaterally, right?
or you don't, like
No, right.
you're not going to get more than I am because I've taken all those courses.
It's a rank issue. It's not a versus kids at Arrowhead issue.
Mhm.
It's an internal
No.
issue.
Right,
Right, because on the college application, that whole rank thing
right.
is a moot point, as is their grade point average, if I'm not mistaken.
So-
So their college scholarships, if you're in top 2, you're not a
Right, right, but that's a rank thing, it's not a GPA, well, I mean, it's a GPA in relation to rank, but if let's say it's not student number 1 or number 2, if my GPA is 3.99 or 4.13, is that gonna make a difference on their college application? Because they take grade point out, correct, for college applications, I mean, they do their own formula. I
Right,
think is what I'm trying to say.
right.
So as long as every kid has an opportunity to take all the weighted classes, and then you get to the youth
Right.
options and it's not
It's not-
weighted, it's
right.
not going to hurt you as a student in
Right.
Waukesha
And
because
with,
we all have the option.
correct, and with the West scenario, I believe I said, I'm like, no, it shouldn't be weighted. Did that
But someone
happen?
else had gotten it weighted, I think was the issue, there was another
Right, in years
student-
past, like 2
Yes.
years ago, somebody over there said, yeah, weighted.
Yes,
So I think they're wanting CNI again to come out and say,
no
make the
weight or
statement.
weight.
No weight or weight,
Right.
just tell us.
right,
Some college level courses aren't advanced.
thank you.
Right.
And that-
No, I
yeah,
know,
I mean,
and that's the
to
Amy's
say
point. I
that
mean,
they all are is
they've
not- is
exhausted
not
all
right.
courses and they're gonna take, basketball.
Women's rifles and
Yeah.
I took my only science credit at a great college, for 2 days, we made marshmallows stick them at college level quiz.
Yeah, so,
Not advanced science.
You raised this earlier, I think, about because you didn't make it something about making it into the honors track in ninth grade. You were denied in the top end. So my question, does it start in the 7th and 8th grade? The kids aren't able to push into the advanced math there. So therefore I was denied the opportunity to take Calc BC as a senior, get weighted, or does it play out there? You have to look at it from that 4-year window, or does it just, you just say it doesn't? Is it an access issue, I guess is my question. If you've already played, if someone is already out of the auditorium race by the time they're a freshman because they're not going to be an honors track, is that a bigger issue? Is that part of this issue then? That 1% of the kids that will get this weighted?
I can speak to math. And at this point now, with our current new course adoption that we have, a kid that's coming in, every kid takes algebra as a freshman unless you're advanced, right? You come in at a regular placement, and then you prove to be advanced at that point, you still have the opportunity to get through every one of our courses. I can't say that same kid would have an opportunity to go through every one of our math courses plus these options. So then no weighted.
right.
For math at least.
I mean, is there anybody else, are we okay, I guess, then, if we just say no weighted, youth options, not weighted? Thanks, have a nice day.
We realize that make your choice. Choose the course or not. It's up to you.
Does that begin to open a door for conversation around not elimination of rank or grade point, but the discussion around like a cum laude system versus a chase the 1 carat system, a top 10% system, versus we race for 1, and it's a 4 decimal point decision between you or Brian for the electoral. Are we ready to start having that conversation in the near future? Because
We've had it.
I was part of that discussion in the board. So professional.
4 years ago,
So
that one,
So
I
then
was
how
not.
does New Berlin, give
the rank
the
issue.
only, I like that, but how do they give the state scholarships?
There's
Really for them, but no one knows it inside their
So you could never know that you were the top
you
1
could
or 2.
mathematically figure it out yourself and ask kids to kind of figure it out. But it took a lot of pressure off, especially for college applications, because you could be ranked in Eisenhower like 50th percentile, so the 3.8 GPA.
Right.
So that's why they went to it.
And when we had these conversations 4 years ago here, we had those same conversations in-house. Does a 4.26 at West mean the same thing as it does at North and South? And we found it wasn't. And a certain top percentage of kids at West didn't look the same as North and South. And I mean, we engaged in about 2 years of that work with Joe Como, Dana Minot, Sharon Tweedy, that whole team, and then kind of the whole.
Aren't most of our surrounding districts like that?
A lot of places are. I could name you a
Yeah.
bunch that do different systems. Yeah. What's his name? That just moved to Northland Pines. Jim Brewer's doing just revamping that system up there too. Eagle River.
People start with the
So-
class.
Yeah. And what we also were finding then too is many of these like log systems are 90, 80, 70, 60. So like they're revamping that, but then under the hood is 90, 80, 70, 60. So again, this very interesting what people pick to tackle in terms of like innovative practices.
Well, I
So-
can speak why we did it. It was because of the parental support for that one was pretty high because their kids were looking worse than what they would have done. So that's why they were like, okay, on board
Right.
with it. So it was a
Right.
win for them.
Interesting, very interesting. All right, I'll get back to Jean Ann Marazzo about that, thank you. Put Amy on the spot for this, but it's not just her. I cannot, just 2 things came up recently. That learning target document for Ally to upload in Infinite Campus, can someone remind me what that's called?
15, 16 secondary learning targets for Infinite Campus.
Secondary
I
learning
may have it
targets.
up because.
Okay, so we, here's what we need to do.
June was not on there.
I know, because here's the thing. I upped the due date as of like today with with that. I wanted to remind us it was there because my own self forgot about it. And then I thought, oh crap, where are we with updating this? And then I talked to Allie today because we're doing the secondary training this afternoon from 4 to 7 at South. We got the middle school peeps coming in. We're talking about May 22nd and everything. And she's like, your coordinators need to be timely with putting that in. And so is June 1st feasible? If Tebow was here, she would say, well, we're not ready yet because we're changing XYZ. I would say put in what you have. By June 1st, put in what you have. If one course like changes, then just give it to her when it's ready. But we should have like 96.5% done. You chime in if you
The only,
want to
the only
add.
changes I'm aware of, I think Sharon, we resolved it at her last meeting. The only changes I'm aware of are math, middle school math.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have a bunch, and a couple of the courses that are choosing to revamp.
I have groups meeting this summer.
Okay,
So,
right,
I mean, I have everything in there,
right.
but then I'll take those individual classes and just let Ellie know that they changed if they do.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had to change one that was more than 75.
Can we do this in that document? Can we just, if we know, like Amy, you know, oh, like July, this, can we somehow just asterisk or highlight that? So she knows, because here's the thing, when Allie's looking at it, she doesn't have to say, did Amy miss this one? Or, so somehow preface that you know updates will be coming in July.
Okay.
Just make it real explicit so that if for some reason we can't find you, we know.
I think we need to maybe, if updates are coming, you
Yeah.
need to also inform your teachers on the 22nd
Yes,
to not do or set up that grade book.
correct,
Because then they're gonna have to do it twice.
Right.
correct. And that's what, like Hubman, we were talking about, she knows that already. She's like, they're not gonna be ready. We're like, that's fine, they don't have to set it up on the 22nd, but at least they'll have the
They
knowledge
can
to be
still
ready
do their
to.
syllabi,
Yeah,
and then they're all math. That's why I put in that time, so they wouldn't
Yeah.
say, well, we're behind, we couldn't
Right.
do it.
right,
So
so you
they'll have time.
built that in. Excellent, excellent. Good. Okay.
I'm thinking, and I can offer to do it, art. What she's got in here for art, I'm not understanding. And
Oh, and so it would be Allie, Wendy, and Joey Highland, those three. I thought you sent them an email when we did this.
I
about
did,
it.
and then
Yeah,
Ellie asked me a question, and I explained about the. Oh wait. so
I can
she
touch
I'll
doesn't-
see Allie and Wendy tomorrow.
No,
for,
you know what?
work
Maybe I'm
being
looking at
elementary.
it wrong.
okay.
So I'll connect with them on.
On the document,
Yep.
awesome, thank you.
Joey would be the one we want to.
Okay, I
Reach
can,
out to.
I can touch base with Joey to make sure. Okay,
They did some work earlier in the year. I don't know that it transferred into this,
okay.
into the doc. Rachel, the work you're doing around that, is
Well,
there help that I can, you need help with that? Or
No,
do
I
you have
guess
anything?
I just looking at the Waukesha for Learning syllabus template that's going out. I know that the
Working
question
on
that
going out,
I've
yeah.
been asked a lot is, how consistent do we have to be with targets and target weighting? And so, this year, I know AP teachers had a lot of flexibility to weight targets. Some course likes did, some course likes didn't. So, like I have 3 teachers right now that teach one course, the same course, that are grading three different ways. Their targets are weighted differently.
Right.
And so going into next year, for groups that I'm working with in terms of like we're starting from scratch building new targets, we're going into it with we're all doing the same. Like they're all the same. If you want to weight them, they're all the same. Like we're all the same. But I've been asked a little bit about like, will we have the same flexibility to if we want to weight a target, for example, that we can. And so I don't know if that pertains to this document. I'm guessing we'll have to tell Allie is that something that teachers set up in there? Teachers set that up. Okay. So maybe then just having an answer for teachers if we're okay with teachers, one teacher weighting, one teacher not weighting.
I just spoke to Ellie yesterday, and she was thinking about pushing out, if there's waiting, pushing it out as it's locked.
So teachers couldn't weight.
She
Like
just
at the
mentioned
course level?
At the course level, it would be built in, would get, so, for instance, it would just be given to them that way.
The other part of that is that if a teacher decides to set up averaging hybrid grade book like this year, then the weighting would matter.
Right.
If they go standards based, it doesn't matter because there's no progress grade. So that's another part of the conversation. So it comes back to our course alikes, even at the site level, setting up the same. English and I would all have standards based grade books, or could you have different grade books across the hall? Which is, I think, part of that conversation as well.
Can I ask about not the weighting of standards, but I happened to be in middle school this morning and a high school, and principals were talking about this at each building. And one principal was saying, my whole building is doing this. He didn't want it different by different departments or different. And the other one was saying, well, we can have it this way and different places. Is that still the same for next year? I mean, is there a decision, or who's making the decision on 80-20, 100-0,
No
or somewhere
one.
in between?
So this is, no one's making that decision because we are gonna allow that autonomy. So, and I mean, that principle reminds me of me because like, I told this story 1,000 times, but I'll tell it again. Like, I was that principal when the customized local solutions came out. I'm like, we're not doing that here. And so all my teachers are like, what? North Landish says we're not doing that here. But South can do that and West can do that. And I took a little bit of flack for it. And then we kind of had customized local solutions 2.0. And now that really means it. So like I think I was still principal then, I don't know what I was, but then basically I wasn't allowed to do that. So that principal can say that, and if his staff is okay, fine. But if there's a chirper and the chirper, chirps,
Okay.
we'll probably let the chirper try what they want.
And I think he was talking more about what he did this year.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
I don't
think
know
we
that
know
that was
that.
going to be the same for next year or not.
Yeah.
It was a conversation piece about the 22nd and what's that going to look like.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's been made clear to people. But
About what?
About that there would be the autonomy between 100-0 and 80-20. But I think he was curious as to what that message would be. That's the impression I got.
Well, and I'm thinking, I mean, we were with those middle school principals. I probably bet half my paycheck who each of those principals were that said that, who they told us that at the meeting.
Okay.
I'll let that, I mean,
And I think
I would let that principal roll out and say, yeah, my whole building's gonna do this. Let him do that.
Okay.
and the four of them, I don't want to speak for them, but they
Yeah.
seem to be in agreement that they'd like to be consistent. They'd
Yeah.
like to be 100,
100-0.
Be 100-0.
Right.
And then when you have a situation where somebody brings compelling evidence not to, then have a conversation and
Yes.
make an exception. But try to live consistently across all 30 schools with
Yeah.
policy.
Okay.
As far as the 80-20 piece, I think the answer continues to be, what would be can we get course alike at sites? So these next door, when we're flex grouping, we're working in that model, can we be consistent at least at course alike at sites? Is that a goal? Can we have some consistency there? And
When you say course like go across the hall, there's across the hall and there's across the town. So when you say course alike, you mean course alike in building or course alike across the district?
so I would start with course alike across the hall. My ninth grade team at West
I just want to clarify.
lives in the same, we create consistency there. Maybe that's a goal, but again,
I agree.
instead of making a rule about that,
Right, yeah.
what would be the compelling reason not to be consistent
Right.
across the hall?
Right.
But knowing the goal might be to get there, we can help steer that conversation, but
I agree with that completely. I still go with, for learning target purposes, like to go bigger than across the hall in terms of commonality. That to me, if we have the same definition of a learning target, that is an essential, like I guess I keep going down to, for one school to say its target weights 20%, from another school to say it weights 50.
I know.
So I would like to set some parameters for next year around that course like across the district have the same target and the same weight.
let's put that on the syllabus. Like, let's capture that thinking, because there's, at some point, there has to be probably some, again, not rules, but some direction about what makes sense.
Well, and
to
again,
be
what we
common
don't, I mean, what you just said is a valid conversation to have with our professionals, but I would never want it to be, which it could very easily be in 30 seconds. Rachel told us we all across all the schools have to have the same, because that's what it can easily turn into. But rather asking those reflective questions so that the teachers can say, yeah, why would they do it 20% at West and 50% at North? Like, make them come to the realizations. Because I can guarantee there's gonna be one coordinator, the same way as it's gonna be one principal that told us we have to do it like this certain way.
Well, Jace, you created, and maybe you did it too, I'm not sure, but I know that when I went in with the group that's starting from scratch, I used the document that had the 3 questions
Right.
that's
About the
how-
targets?
About the targets.
good.
And so that was a way to get them to say it without it being like a directive. Those
Right.
were, I mean, 3 not simple questions, but 3 questions that really drove at them coming to their own conclusion, so.
I had it though where I had somebody who was across the hall, and the person across, there was 2 teachers that wanted to do 80-20. The teacher across the hall wanted 100-0 because her counterpart, now this is not all the same class, but her course of life teacher across town was doing 100-0. And so then the conversation became, is it better if the students in one department at one building were the same? And are you gonna get more or less argument than if someone in this same class is doing it this way at this building and a different way at a different building? So that's what I'm struggling with right now. Is it better to be consistent across the department in one building or across course of likes in other buildings?
Well, and I'll let Jason answer, but then I just want to answer from a district lens.
Please.
The district lens would say the consistency is not what matters, it's the communication for the kid and the parents. So although we're hung up on that consistency, no one else is. No one else is. It's a matter of clear communication of expectations.
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
And somebody made the point that it used to be, for example, if I taught computer apps, my percentages were different in that class than they were in the accounting class. And so even one teacher in different classes had different weights when we had, 5 different categories
Yep.
besides formative and summative.
Yep.
And it never seemed to be an issue then.
Yep.
So I agree with you.
I agree. I would say come back to that it's just, kids are compared against each other at site versus across the city. It's not a rank of all high school kids. So if there were a ranking or equity issue at a site, probably more better to be consistent at a building. I had different grading rules than you, therefore I lost valedictorian, therefore I have a legal case versus across the town, but I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but that would be one consideration.
No, but when kids play the grading game, it might be, okay, it's gonna be easier to get an A in your class than it is in your class, so I'm gonna take your class because of your weights, because it'll be easier to get an A
Absolutely.
or whatever, advanced. Because unfortunately, kids play the game.
No way.
Oh, sorry. Usually I wear rose-colored glasses, but
Where are they? Oh, they're on your desk.
And maybe this common syllabus helps at least define what the rules are for the kids
There are
to play
no
the
rules,
games.
remember there's guidelines.
Well, if there's games the kids play,
Their intentional guidelines.
Sorry, I'm just
they
saying,
know how to
no,
play
we
it
don't
'cause
have rules.
the guidelines are there.
There we
so
go.
maybe we've communicated the guidelines to the students to play the game. And they know how to navigate that a little bit better.
See my comments on the policy words? Get those policy words on there.
You don't like policy? You don't want to write more